Well, Hellblade 2 is here, and I have to say, I am disappointed. The previews a couple of weeks ago had me worried that we were going to get a tech demo that had prioritized all the wrong things, and then the reviews landed on the day of the game's launch, and it described a game that did not sound like it was a step up from the first game with respect to gameplay and combat, as well as just game length. And then I played the game on stream. You can check it out. I played it for a little over an hour. Then I played some more after that. I wanted to try to get some footage. And then I played it a little bit more last night. And I'm just baffled at so many of the decisions that Ninja Theory made. And people were not exaggerating about the walking. And then there's more walking. And then there's a section where I walked around with a torch. And the puzzle for that section just didn't make any sense. And then the combat, I mean, it made sense. It just wasn't very difficult. It was sort of silly. Again, it was just walking. And I appreciated the walking because of the dialogue, but it really did get insane how much they have you walking in a game that only lasts about 5 or 6 hours. But then the combat, okay? Be sure to watch my latest video about how this game is a regressive disappointment. That's what I put on the thumbnail, okay? In that video, I make it very clear how much Hellblade 1 used combat. There are so many people out here that apparently never played the first game, okay? They're claiming that there wasn't that much combat in Hellblade 1. That isn't true. We prove that false in the video. We also show how much better Hellblade 1's combat is. So you've got to watch it. There's great, my producer did great work with the editing to showcase all the different things, how integral and central combat was in Hellblade 1 and why it's so much better. I also spend 5 minutes praising all of the good things about Hellblade 2, okay? So it's not just like a hit piece. And this is the live discussion that followed that video. So if you want to make sure you're here for my uploads, hit subscribe, hit the bell button, and you can always go and watch that video later to hear what I think. Now it's time to hear what you think. So good morning and good afternoon to the live audience. Thank you guys so much for being here. Make sure and smash that like button. Get those first 100 likes rocking. There's already over 300 over here. A little bit of a change today. That video was a little bit longer. It clocked in at about 18 minutes because I did want to spend ample time praising the game. So for 5 straight minutes, I just walked through the graphics, the sound design, the music, the writing, the voice acting, the tone, and the story. I think there's so much about the game that is quite good that I actually think they're going to get awards for. I do. But that doesn't make for a good game, okay? You can have an absolutely stunning game graphically, and then the game can be kind of boring or not very good. Like, we've had experiences like this before. The Order 1886 was kind of criticized for this, and, you know, this game, I think, is going to be another one of those games that we're going to look back and be like, oh, wow, what a beautiful game. That was one of the first games to really give us photorealism and, you know, NPCs that look real. And the execution of it, though, is, I think, why you're seeing so many people say it just is not a fun game or isn't enjoyable. Even last night, the more I see the combat for what it is, the more annoyed I get by it. Like, anytime there's a combat sequence, I kind of roll my eyes. I'm like, oh, here we go. I have to perfect parry and then slash and then perfect parry and then execute, and that's basically it. Day before yesterday, I watched so much Hellblade 1 content and live streamers that brought back all the feels. Yo, Mickle. Love the breakdown. Hate seeing such a superb property not show as well as it could. 23 months from Mickle. DK Bager is a Han shot first, and so did you. First gifted member of the day. You guys are crushing the weekly goal already, so thank you so much. Remember, every 25 new members, I give 5. That does not have to be gifteds. That can be also just brand new members. If you feel like supporting the channel directly, you already have 134 members for the week. The goal of 400 to make me play a scary VR game on Friday night, and my wife will be here as well. And there's another gifted member coming in. Thank you so much, Mickle. And I'm just going to commit to calling you Mickle. I'm not diverging this time. I'm just committed. I'm in. I'm not wavering. Eugene says watching Hellblade 1 footage yesterday just made the disappointment worse. Nope. Okay, I got it wrong again. Yeah, here's the thing. I'm really, really glad that we took the time to showcase that, because I think I am so tired and already fed up hearing from people who clearly didn't play the first game. It's like you didn't play Hellblade 1, or you played it so long ago that you've completely forgotten the fact that there's a ton of combat. Combat is central. the Hellblade 1. You're constantly in combat, and the walking section and the cinematic sections and the puzzle sections, they're not nearly as lengthy, so that the combat's showing up far more rhythmically, and it's better. Like, you can clearly see it in my video. It's like, it's better. It's faster. There's more fluidity. She's just wham, 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 parry, next guy, wham, wham, wham. And this one's just so halting and so compartmentalized. Like, I can't get over, especially going back and seeing the Blood River, section in Hellblade 1, or the Valravn fight, or even the ending when you're just wave after wave after wave of enemy. It's like, where did that go? Why is that not here? Why'd we lose that? To do 1v1 fights that are miniature quick time. I can't believe I'm seeing people that are like, I loved the first one, and I don't get why people don't like the combat in the second one. And I'm like, because it's completely and utterly different. And if you can't tell that it's completely and utterly different, I think that's on your own perceptive abilities. Like, it is not at all the same. It is a complete divergence from what you do in the first game. Managing 3 or 4 enemies of different types at the same time, strategic use of focus, dodge, parry. Right, because there's different enemies, right? So you have to, like, take certain guys more seriously because they're going to club you, or they're going to make it more difficult on you, or they're going to have a shield. Like, it's completely layered with strategy, you, especially on, like, the bridge section and the Blood River section and then the ending section. There's so much you have to consider. It's not just, oh, I've got one guy in front of me and I've got to time my perfect parries. Like, that's literally all the combat is in this game. Somebody said they disagree. Totally disagree. Hellblade 2 is a masterpiece and a Game of the Year contender. Well, it's not a Game of the Year contender, I'm sorry. There aren't going to be enough outlets, I don't think, to vote for it. It didn't get enough favorable treatment from the press. When the jury process of the Game Awards hits, you're not going to have enough outlets that give it a nomination. I don't think so. When people were kind of squealing and anxious to give their reviews, and we saw the new launch trailer, I thought maybe they pulled it off, maybe they kept everything shrouded. It's like a 5-hour tech demo. Like, it's not at all a game worthy of Game of the Year nomination. Sound design, sure. Performance from Melina Jurgens, sure. Soundtrack, amazing. Art direction, of course. Like, the game is gorgeous. But then as soon as you leave that aside and you focus on gameplay from a pacing perspective, bro, you just walk and walk and walk and walk. And it's like, it's only a 5-hour game, and I've played it for 2 hours, and I've spent most of the time just walking. Like, and listen, in the beginning, for the first hour, I was willing to overlook it. I was like, they're setting the stage. New story, new environment. We got to kind of reorient and recalibrate to where Senua is, how she's doing. The past is still present. Her dad's coming back in. They got to make sure and bring up Dillian. She's now viewing the thing with Dillian differently. It's not this pain that's dragging her down. It's this promise that's pushing her forward, right? Like, that was so good. But then it's just more walking. And then more walking, and then a little bit more walking, and like, it gets to the point where you're like, are you messing with me? Like, is this a joke? Like, are you fooling around with me? Like, what? Where's the game? Where's the gameplay? And then I had to do that section with the torch, not the section that Maddie Plays talked about. You literally go get a torch, and you have to, like, break this glass stuff and then move forward. And then you get to a point where you have 2 options. And one of them, after you go through, you see like a red light, and you know that's the wrong choice. So you go back and choose the other one. Like, that's the puzzle. The puzzle is literally, you break through the glass with the torch, you go a little bit, and you see a red light, and you're like, oh, I'm going to die if I go through this one. And then you go back and you choose the other one. Like, literally a trial and error puzzle. That's your puzzle? Like, what? What? I literally was like, that can't be the puzzle. Is there anything else to it? No. And then you get in those fights in this section where you have to use your focus to get rid of the enemies. And so once again, you're in this sequence of standing and waiting so that you can get a perfect parry, which triggers a mini cinematic, which then fills your focus. So then you can do focus and just sort of button mash, a guy, and then he's gone. And the next guy, same thing. And it's like, once you see the combat is not a player agency driven encounter, it's just boring. It's a snooze fest. Like, as soon as you realize that, and I wonder if people just don't realize it. I wonder if they just think they're awesome and they're really good at the game. It's like, you're not doing anything. You aren't. And I played a little bit of Stellar Blade last night because I'm trying to finish Stellar Blade. And I got in a boss fight last night. It was just phenomenal. And it's, again, that fluidity was in the first Hellblade. Like, now, obviously, the parries were very easy. Like, the first game, I obviously think they could have maybe made it a little bit more challenging. I think when you up the difficulty in Hellblade 1, it literally just makes the enemies have more health, and then I think they do more damage to you. Like, that's it. If they would have tightened up the parry windows and dodge windows in Hellblade 1 when you raise the difficulty, I think it could have been really special. I think it could have been really fun. Because the combat is pretty straightforward, and the parry and dodge windows are very, very big. It's a very forgiving game. But it's satisfying. That's the point. It's not meant to be Sekiro. It's not meant to be, a super challenging game. And so it does its job. Like, the combat is like a delivery mechanism of moving the story forward and making Senua feel as if she's getting stronger, she's getting better. Yeah, I'm well past that fight, Hotshot. Yeah, the game, here's the thing. Hellblade's getting a good score on Steam, and it's going up. It was like 89%, I think, when I checked it this morning. Still less than like 1,000 reviews. So I think this is kind of like when everybody was just railing against Kill the Justice League, and I was like, yeah, but the user scores are pretty high. I think there's a smaller group of people that have purchased Hellblade 2, and I think they're enjoying it, and I think that that's totally fine. I'm not going to tell anybody that their enjoyment of Hellblade 2 is illegitimate. Now, I am going to push back against false claims when people are like, well, there wasn't that much combat in the first game. Or I had people telling me, this combat is exactly the same as the first game. What's your problem? And I'm like, yeah, you just let me know that you didn't play the first game. If you think this combat is the exact same as the first game, you didn't play it. Or you played it such a long time ago, you need to go back and play it. If you play them back to back, Gene Park and I went back and forth on Twitter about this. He was like, he played them, side by side. He was switching between the first game and the second game. He's like, it's objectively better combat in the first game. It's just, you're actually engaging in a fight where you press a button and you swing, and you press a button and you parry. Like, it's moment-to-moment player agency on display. And Hellblade 2's combat is not that. It isn't. Like, you really need to watch that video that I put up this morning and watch my breakdown of why the combat's bad, why the combat is better in Hellblade 1, and look at the comparison. Like, look at the comparison of what they let you do in the first game compared to this game. It's markedly different. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy it, but don't tell me it's the same. Don't tell me the first game didn't have any combat. You're just saying things that aren't true. You're allowed to like the combat in Hellblade 2. You're allowed to think that it's good. You're allowed to think that it's enjoyable, but don't say it's exactly the same, because it's not. And don't say that the first game didn't have any combat, because that just isn't true. It's doing worse than the first one. In what respect, Eugene? Are you just saying, like, popularity-wise? I mean, they didn't market it all that well. That might be one of the reasons it's not having a super strong response on Steam. They didn't market it all that much. Which is interesting, because Ghost of Tsushima didn't get a ton of marketing either for its port, and it had way more sales and way more players. I think it has Ghost of Tsushima, to be fair, has larger, market appeal. I do think Hellblade's more niche, but still, neither game got marketed that much. Combat is bad in Hellblade 2 because it's not on PlayStation. That's why you say this? No, that simply isn't true at all. I played it on my PC, brother. I don't care where the game is. Do you want to know where I have the most hours with Hellblade 1? Steam. 37 hours in the first game on Steam. I'm not like you. I don't care who made the game. I don't care who owns the studio. I loved the first game and put almost 40 hours of it on Steam, and that's where I played the sequel. I could give a rip who owns it. I could give a rip what piece of plastic you cuddle with at night. This game is a huge regression from the first game. It really is. It really is. It's shorter in length. How do you make a sequel that's shorter than in length than the first game? You have more money now. You're a larger studio. You're owned by the biggest company like in the world. One of the biggest companies in the world. Come on. How can you defend that? It's like a 5-hour game. And I can't believe people are acting like the combat is the same or isn't a regression. I've been liking Hellblade, been wearing a great headset and been enjoying the story, and just got past the first giant, just been taking my time with all the scenes. Listen, Psycho Feed, the sound is great. They nailed all of that. Like I said, in my video this morning, I spend 5 minutes doing nothing but praising the sound design, the voice acting, the writing, the tone, the graphics. But then when you're actually playing it, it's like, you got any dinosaurs on your dinosaur tour? It's like, do you have any gameplay in your video game? It's like, where's the gameplay? You're just constantly walking. You know Lono's serious when he busts out the Jerry voice? What are we doing? Why is the game only 5 hours? Like, oh my golly. 4.5 years of development for a 5-hour story? Well, no, it's not been in development that long. That's another thing that people are really messing up. It wasn't even in full development 3 years ago. In the middle of 2021, the CEO was like, hey, we've not even entered full development yet. I really hate that, man. A 10 spot from Edward Hull says, I've been playing Hellblade 1 again recently, and I've just been reminded how great the experience the game is. To see the slick, tight, engaging combat in 1 get downgraded so much in 2 is just sad. Thank you. I'm telling you, play the first one and then come play the second one, and you'll be like, oh, I see what he's talking about. Stone Spire with a gifted member. Thank you so much. Taking us to 3 members on the day. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you guys are smashing the like button as well. Let's set our sights on 200 likes. Huge turnout again today. Stone Spire with another one. He's going to set up the 20 bomb layup. He's going to take us from 4 to 5. I already know it, so I'm just going to do it. I know what Stone Spire's doing. He's going to do a third single gifted. Let's see if he can bait one of the big boys to drop a 20 bomb. We had a couple 20 bomb gifteds yesterday, and let's see if we can get one today. Thank you so much, Stone Spire. And that one goes to Russell Stewart. Good to see that. I like seeing names like that get the gifteds. Eugene said he was totally immersed until I got to the first fight yesterday. He said it totally broke it. Seeing you swing and then get weird animation transitions to fit in the mocap totally broke immersion. Yes, it's so weird, right? I bet you 10,000 to pass the first enemy just walking. Well, when someone says that you're just walking, you understand that we're not saying that's all you're doing, but you spend the vast majority of the time walking. Somebody needs to do a supercut. Go take those 5-hour play session walkthroughs that are on YouTube and slice out all of the spots where you're just walking. It's a vast majority of the experience. And yes, I'm okay with that at times because Senua has to talk. The voices in her head have to talk. Her dad has to talk, Senua. Like, that has to happen. But there's so much of it. There's so little that the pacing is so jacked up. Yo, Patrick, thank you for another gifted. Patrick setting up the 20 bomb Agent of Chaos. Thank you so much, Patrick Q. Like, it's the pacing, really. You can have sections where you walk and you listen and the story and the character development takes place. Hey guys, take a second. If you're lurking, if you're listening, if you're daily watching, do me a quick favor. Just right now, everybody smash like, double check, make sure you've done that. We're having one of those days where I say it and it's like YouTube's acting funky. So double check and make sure that it's saving your like. Now, Sven's using the members only Discord to type a really long comment here. I've been trying to think of a way to explain my thoughts without dismissing others. He's like, I hear you about the combat being a sticking point for some people. Well, I can understand that frustration. For me, the immersion in Hellblade 2 comes from other aspects. Sound design, acting, writing, and especially the graphics are just phenomenal. It feels just like this real engaging as the first game. Combat wasn't a huge draw for me in the first Hellblade either. It was all about the story, the mental state of betrayal, and the atmosphere. So far, Hellblade 2 hasn't disappointed on that front. Okay, here's the thing, Sven. All right, here's my comeback. I already know that I have a great comeback to what you've typed. One of the reasons that people were able to play the first game and just sort of not really care about the combat is because the combat just did its job. It showed up, it was satisfying, it was great, it was good, okay? Everything you're saying about the immersion of Hellblade 2, the acting, sound design, writing, it's so good. And as I said in my video, immersive experiences are very fragile. They are delicate. If you are enthralled in a movie or a video game and someone comes in the room and asks you a question, it demolishes the experience you're having. You almost need a second. You're like, whoa, wait, especially if it's like a scary movie or something. So an immersive experience is extremely delicate. And I'm so, like, for the first hour, I'm in. I'm like, I'm okay with the slowness. I'm okay with the walking. I'm like, this is Hellblade. This is Senua. This is the world that I love. This is a character that I love. And the combat is like this giant record scratch. It's like all of a sudden, I'm doing something that feels awkward. It doesn't feel intuitive. It feels clumsy. It feels slow. It doesn't feel good. Right? That's the issue, is it hurt. All those immersion points that have now taken place have drugged me down deep into the water, and then all of a sudden you're like shining a light in my face, and I'm like, oh, you just ruined it. Like, that's my point. That's the problem, is they nail all those immersive aspects, and then combat steps in the room and is like, hey, you want a quick time event? And it's like, no, I don't. I want to be able to press the buttons and fight and not have you do everything for me. B. Carter is legit with 11 months of memberships. I'm still not a fan of the change, but I'm still here because I respect the hustle. Also sounds like Hellblade was a big letdown for you, and that's sad. Appreciate that. I can understand why the combat in Hellblade 2 is taking you out of it then. That's what it is. Sven, if all of the other things were bad, we wouldn't be even having this conversation. I'd be like, yeah, it's just a bad game. But I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like you guys know how to set up really good cinematic sequences. You leverage the talent of Melina Juergens so expertly. The writing is just so wonderful. The way they use the binaural audio, like going left and right, it's so haunting. It's like entrancing. It's enchanting. You're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? And then the combat just absolutely tumbles the whole thing to the ground. It's like, I would be okay with slower pacing and lots of walking and lots of talking and lots of narrative. I'd be okay with all of that if I wasn't so annoyed by, oh, now I have to fight and it's really unenjoyable. Even last night when I was doing that torch section, not the torch section that Maddie Plays was talking about, even when it's like a different section. Even when I was doing that, once I realized I had to fight, I just kind of rolled my eyes. I was like, yep, here we go. And I literally just like did it without even a thought. I was like, yep, perfect parry, swing, swing, perfect parry, swing, swing. He's dead. Perfect parry, swing, swing, perfect parry, swing, swing. Like, there's just nothing to it. There's no depth to it anymore. You're just constantly on sort of like this waiting limbo. If you fight and avoid being hit, it means you're in gameplay. Yeah, no one's disputing that. No one's disputing that. I think you're struggling to see the difference between the combat in Hellblade 1 and the combat in Hellblade 2. The combat in Hellblade 1 is constant, moment-to-moment player agency. Everything you do immediately happens. Everything you do. If you're like, swing, 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 she swings, swings, swings. If you go parry, swing, 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 it's all happening like, it's wonderful. Oh no, someone's coming in from the side. And they're like, watch out. And you're like, bing. And you parry somebody who's like coming in out of frame. Oh, it's so satisfying. You feel awesome. It's very simple, yet satisfying. Okay? Now, the thing about the new game is, all right, the thing about the new game is that all of that's gone. Yo, Alexander Harris jumps in at a VIP plus. I'm counting that as 3 new memberships. Bumps the line to 9. Welcome in, Alexander. I appreciate that so much. That's all gone in this game. There are no multi-target fights. It's always one-on-one. There is no moment-to-moment player agency because you're not doing that anymore. You aren't. It's a glorified QuickTime event. That's what it is. It's no longer a moment-to-moment, I have impact, I can make a choice. It's, I have to wait, you know. Oh, yeah, I parry, got my perfect parry. It just, it doesn't feel like the first game in any respect once you're in combat. Eugene says, hang on, he's talking about the first game. They also had a dynamic combat setting that realized if you sucked at it, that would make it easier and vice versa. So if you didn't care about the combat, the game was made easy. Right, that's in this game as well. Yeah, Hellblade 2 has dynamic. I have mine set to dynamic. If you guys get a membership from somebody that's gifting or you pick up your own membership, always remember to get into our Discord. Hellblade, 5 to 6 parries each combat encounter. Hellblade, 5 to 6 parries the entire game. Oh, I think you're trying to talk about the differences between the two, maybe. Reforge, you spitting facts, watching the start of the stream now. I think the most frustrating thing about this is I'm a huge Hellblade fan, and this is just getting absolutely... Thankfully, it's not happening today, because I'm just not even letting it come in. I don't even care to let those people hang out here, because they're not enjoyable to engage with, right? They're Neanderthalic. Like, they can't think outside of their own, like, little two-brain-celled world of, like, you're either a this or a that. And it's like, this is absolutely nothing to do with console tribalism. Yes, the ponies are having a field day with this on Twitter. They are. They're celebrating the low player count. They're celebrating the 20 FPS dips, right? They're celebrating the fact that the game's only 5 hours long, okay? They're doing all that. I broke down in specific detail the mechanical differences and problems with the combat. As a fan of the game, and as someone who was trying to put meat on the bones of the problems of like why it doesn't feel good, I am not out here celebrating this. I am irritated. I am frustrated. Hellblade 1 is one of my, if not my all-time favorite game. I wanted this game to be a triumph. I wanted this game to be like the sequel to Ori. Ori and the Blind Forest is one of my favorite games of all time, and Ori and the Will of the Wisps is a wonderful sequel. And I celebrate that. I celebrated it when it comes out. Well, why? Well, take that and put that into your Xbox, I hate Xbox narrative. I wanted this to be like Ori and the Will of the Wisps. It needed to be a bigger and better sequel to build upon the first game. And it just didn't do that. It didn't do that. Hellblade 1 was mocapped too, but the actions for each input was mocapped. Seems like Hellblade 2 mocapped choreography for the whole fight, which is not gameplay. I'm just a mocap actor, though. What do I know? It genuinely feels like you're not triggering an action, you're triggering something scripted. That's exactly how it feels. Yeah, Plague Tale is another good analog. Yeah, Plague Tale, the sequel, was significantly bigger and better than the first game. Resident Evil 4 Remake took a quick time event and they turned it into a boss fight and took it further by turning it into a parry mechanic. It sounds like Hellblade 2 made exactly the opposite, just weird stuff. This is what I think happened. Okay? And I think this is the problem. If you look at the footage of combat from Hellblade 2, okay? If you look at that footage, it looks fabulous. I remember seeing the early gameplay looks, and I remember telling people that were like, oh, it looks bad, the lights are flashing, it's hard to see. I remember telling people, I'm like, I think it looks awesome. Here's what I think happened. I think they became enthralled with the idea of one of the major selling points of Hellblade 1 is Melina Juergen's performance as Senua and her face and her emotion and the gravity that she brings to the table, okay? And I think what happened was they got into their creative process and said, let's take that aspect and turn it all the way up to 11. There's evidence of this when you see them at the one conference and they're showcasing Melina Juergen's face, how they mocap her face, how even the most micro expressions on her face are ending up in the game. She's, snarling her teeth and she's looking angry. And I think when they did that, they went even further and they said, okay, why don't we also then take that element of motion capture and putting Melina in the game? Let's motion cap every aspect of combat. And when you see it and then you put it in front of people, it's impressive. You're like, that looks awesome. That looks awesome. Look at how amazing that looks. I think that's what happened. I think they got sold on the idea of it's going to be more visceral, it's going to be more cinematic, it's going to put more on display of what made the first game so good, and in execution, it just feels terrible. It doesn't feel good. It's like it feels choppy, it feels slow, it doesn't feel fluid. And the first game feels that way. Now, if this was their first game ever, I think it might be less egregious because you'd be like, oh, this is just a unique take on quick time event hybrid style combat. You might be more forgiving of it. You might say, oh, this is an interesting interpretation of what action game melee based action combat can be like. You might be a little bit more forgiving. But the fact that the first game exists, you can go play it right now. You can go look at footage right now, and there's this speed, fluidity, there's this element of player agency, there's multi-target fights. It's like there's entire sections where you're fighting, wave after wave of enemy, and it's just this constant, like, 2 or 3 guys pushing in, somebody coming from behind or on the side. That's all gone. That's all been thrown into the bin because they were like, we want to mocap everything. Because again, if you look at trailers, if you look at my gameplay yesterday, unless you're really paying attention and you're really analyzing like the little stutters, the little hitches, and the weird animation breaks, you might not catch it. You're like, oh, it looks great. It looks really, really realistic. And you're not wrong. It does. It's experientially, it's inferior to the first game when you're in the combat. I get your point. I still find it weird. Those guys made Devil May Cry. They know how to do good combat system. How come they sacrifice gameplay for mocap? Well, this is another issue that a lot of people actually had this issue with the first game. Because I would talk about how much I enjoyed it. And I would always say that Hellblade 1 is more of an experience than a video game. I would say that. I think internally, Ninja Theory's hierarchy of priority was the experience of the game being cinematic. That trumps all. That's the god in the room. That's the king, right? The highest ranked thing in the room is it needs to be cinematically just very strong. And so they're willing to sacrifice elements of gameplay for that. Because I think that was kind of what the first game was. Like, there were people that were very critical of the first game because they were like, the combat is so simplistic and so stupid, they didn't like it. I remember people that would tell me that. They thought that the combat... I've gotten in long, lengthy debates with people defending Hellblade 1 against them saying, look, the combat's just bad. Yo, and a 5 spot comes in from Alexander Harris. His first day as a member, he picks the biggest membership, and now he's dropping a 5 bomb on chat. Thank you so much for doing that, guys. If you got a gifted member, make sure and thank Mr. Harris. When the co-founder leaves unannounced mid-development, be concerned. He didn't leave mid-development. He left like right before the previews happened. That's not mid-development. That's basically at the end. Not uncommon for people to leave as a project is coming to its close, but it did seem, yeah. Corey says, I remember those conversations about Hellblade 1 gameplay and where it ranked among action-adventure games. Sorry, Lono. I knew Hellblade 2 would be bad, but I never expected this. Yeah, Corey is one of the people, he can tell you, we would get in knockdown, drag-out fights about Hellblade 1, and I would defend it, and I would say that it was great, and I would say that the combat was good, and that it did its job, and then it's more of an experience than a video game. It's more of an experience, so it's okay if the action elements of it are more simplistic and more basic. We used to get in arguments about this all of the time. He can tell you. Can I get a witness? I used to say this all the time. I think internally Ninja Theory said it's okay if combat becomes more simplistic, because it is, because the experience will be so much more cinematic. Like, you can see it in the way they executed the combat. Like, when you get your first perfect parry, it's pretty awesome. It is. But it's one of those things where I remember somebody once talking about the show Seinfeld, and there were people that were asking for spin-off shows. Could we get a spin-off show of just Kramer? And I remember somebody saying that would never work, because Kramer works as comedic injection, slapstick goofiness in small doses. It also works as he's interacting with other group dynamics of Elaine, George, Jerry, Newman, and then you go out from there into the other supporting cast members that eventually showed up. So, this is kind of like that. Having those really cinematic moments, like in Spider-Man 2, you earn that combo finisher. You press 2 buttons at once, you pick somebody up, slow-mo, and you slam them to the ground, and they bounce back up, and you punch them in the face, okay? That works because it's like, dink, one piece, you're fighting. Oh, here's a bink, here's a cinematic animated sequence. It works in small doses. It's like Kramer, right? Hellblade 2 walks in the room and they're like, nah, everything you do in combat is going to be like this microcosmic, slow-down cinematic thing. And it's like, no, you went full. You went totally full. This is too much. It's called too much of a good thing. That's a saying, right? You know, you really like ranch dressing. Well, you know, somebody might want to fight me on this if they really like ranch dressing, but if you turn a salad into ranch dressing soup, it's too much ranch dressing. It's going to be gross. You're really just spooning ranch into your mouth with bits of lettuce. Now, somebody might say, Lono, that sounds phenomenal, but you get the point that I'm making. It's too much of a good thing. Do you like ketchup and mustard on your cheeseburger? Yes. Do you put so much on the cheeseburger that it's falling off the sides and it's soaking into the bun, and then the bun gets soggy because you used so much? You would say you've ruined the burger. Something that's meant to be, a condiment on top, or like a sprinkling of something that's, ooh, that added just a nice touch. It's all over it. It's like it's too much. It's way too much. That's the issue. It doesn't feel like it complements the fight. It's just completely hijacked the fight. It's like it's completely taken over. That's how I eat my salad. And the reason that I'm fixating on the combat is because it's supposed to be the crescendo to the sneaking and the intensity and the gravity and the fear. Yo, Stone Spire setting up a 10-bomb dunker. 15 members out of the 25 goal. If we hit 25, I give 5 back to the community, and we're well on our way to the weekly goal. Thank you so much, Stone Spire. You have to have balance. Did I save this tweet? This one guy, he phrased it so excellently. I don't think I saved it. I put it in the Discord last night, and I said this is so well stated. I don't know if anybody can find it. Can somebody find that for me? I believe that's what I said. I said it in the members thing. I said this is so well stated. Hellblade 2 is great as a sequel to Hellblade 1. Mo, I'm glad people are liking it. I'm glad it has a good score on Steam. As an immense fan of the first game, I feel the combat has regressed immensely, and it really, really hurts. The pacing of the game and the game length is already questionable. It's already questionable. It's shorter than the first game, which is questionable. And the combat has regressed. Objectively regressed. Thank you, Sven. I want you to look at this tweet with me. All right? Because this guy is interacting with Gene. And what he's essentially doing is he's trying to touch on why Hellblade 2 feels the way that it does, okay? And I thought this was so well stated, I want to share it with you guys. Let me get it big and on the screen for you. Pause. Okay, so Gene Park is saying Hellblade 2 combat. Now, Gene Park is saying, and he's in agreement with me, and I'm in agreement with him, that we basically went back and forth on Twitter, and we said that the combat in the first game is better, okay? I don't know why you have 15 hours in the game you haven't finished it, Mo. All of the completion videos on YouTube are like 5 hours long. Anyway, so this guy named Dan Lowe here, I love the way that he put this. He says, anim systems. So animation systems are a constant balance between presentation, responsiveness, player choice, and production resources. Hellblade may not match the exact balance I'd go for personally, but I admire any team that goes all out trying to push the boundaries of any one of those axes. So, I think you can get a picture of what I'm trying to talk about here. They lowered the priority of responsiveness and player choice, okay? This is significantly lower in priority and quality in these fights. Do you know what is all the way at the tippity top of priority? Presentation. Presentation. As I said moments ago when I theorized what happened, the presentation is God. It's God to Ninja Theory in Hellblade 2. Because if your hands are not on the controller, the combat looks so cool. It does. When you're holding the controller, no, it doesn't feel as good as the first game. Like I said, the responsiveness and the player choice has been completely diminished. It's in the back seat. It's not the priority. It isn't. Now, some games go way further than that. Sekiro would be an example of a game that puts a high priority on responsiveness and player choice, but presentation isn't as high. It's not like this cinematically, graphically strong game. Sekiro is a good-looking game with great art direction, but the presentation is sort of subservient to player responsiveness, player choice, player agency. Do you see the point that I'm making? That's the issue. So you can love Hellblade 2. I'm just trying to tell you what they did with the combat is they said player responsiveness, player choice, player agency. No, that's going to take a back seat. What's paramount here? What is ultimate is the presentation. It has to look amazing, which I can't fault them for that. I can just say I disagree with that choice. I don't agree with that choice in priority. I feel like it has hurt the immersion. This game is, you are meant to feel as if you are going through this with Senua, and when you make me take a back seat, it's okay to make me take a back seat for the cinematics. It's okay to make me take a back seat for the audio sections where you're just sort of like experiencing like what she's experiencing. But when you make me take a back seat in the combat, now I feel like I'm riding a ride at Disney where like I'm just sort of like I'm just kind of doing this, like nice scenery, nice dialogue. Oh, it's combat time. Okay, perfect parry. Swing. Execute. Here comes another guy. Perfect parry. It's like I'm just sort of being drug along through the game. I don't feel like I have the agency that I had in the first game. That's my disappointment with it. You can love it. It's one of the best looking games that'll probably come out this year. It'll likely win awards for that. And I'm excited for them to get more prestige and more awards. Hopefully that protects them from getting shut down. Rich Rob with a $2 super chat. Has it been confirmed that she can't die? No, you can die. Yo, Bushin Ryu with a $5 super chat says, congrats on your live LP review getting recognized. Everyone agrees with you on Hellblade 2. I want to pivot and get your quick POV on Copilot for Windows. I don't really have any commentary on that. What do you mean my live LP review getting recognized? What do you mean? Is the video being like promoted somewhere? What are you talking about? Who said that? Who did that super chat? Bushin Ryu? Yeah, Bushin Ryu cat. What are you referring to? I said yesterday, I want a good movie that looks like a game, but if you want a good movie that looks like a game, buy Hellblade 2. Combat is part of gameplay, and when you do something that was not scripted, it feels really good. It creates a unique experience for you. It's way more important than looks. I mean, I think in the first game, I had like my own style, like my own approach to combat. Like the better and more I played it, and even on like my subsequent playthroughs, I would up the difficulty and I would charge at people, close the space. I would manage, multiple targets. I kind of had my own way of playing. It felt good. In this, it doesn't feel like you can really have your own style. You're just waiting for a perfect parry so then you can kill the guy. And then somebody else comes along and kicks you, shoves you, or tackles you, and it's time to do it again. And you see the game growing on you. No. I had a bunch of people from this community. They said, I'm going to see for myself, Lono. I'm going to see for myself. And they all left comments last night saying, I finished the game. The reviews are correct. It's disappointing. It's a regression. The combat's bad. I have people telling me, they're like, you're defending the story, Lono. They're like, the story gets worse. And I'm like, I don't think it's I don't think it's going to grow on me, sadly. I'm 2 hours. How much time do I have in the game? No, I'm 3 hours. I'm 3 hours into the game. I'm halfway through, according to the playtime that everybody has described. I'm either a third of the way through or halfway through. I don't have much game left. And I don't feel like anything... Here's the problem, too. I don't think the combat can get better because it's foundational. It's just how they built it. A lot of people started saying the same thing about Hellblade 2 right after you finished your stream yesterday. People were scared to say the truth until we talked about it. No real control. Oh. Well, I have to applaud Matty Plays was one of the first people. He was one of the first reviews I watched, and he was the one that was like, it feels like a QuickTime event. It doesn't feel good. The combat doesn't feel good. He was one of the first people I really heard say it. Yeah, I'm hearing big fans of Hellblade 2 say that the ending is disappointing. Yeah. It's... What is this? A stream key? I don't know what game this is. It doesn't get any better. Yeah, a lot of people have said that. Eugene says, I watched a cinematic sequence yesterday and she's just running cover to cover. There was no substance. I went through a sequence like that yesterday, Eugene. And I literally was like this. I was just sitting like this. And I was just holding forward on the joystick. I took 2 or 3 turns. She hopped over a couple of things, and then that was the end of it. And I was like, okay. I think part of the problem is that... Okay, so remember in the first game, you get to that section. It's actually one of my least favorite sections in the game. When you have to run from the guy that if he gets close to you, he just burns you and you die. Like if he like sees you and you're like chasing, I think you're like looking for symbols. Yeah. You're looking for symbols and they're like slits in the wood and you got to look at those while he's chasing you. So you got to find them, stop, look at them, and then keep going. Okay. It's actually one of my least favorite parts in the game. But the first time I played it, it really hit. It was terrifying. Because there wasn't anything really like that up to that point. Up to that point, it was like, you had some walking sections, some puzzles, some fighting, some walking, some puzzles, some fighting, a boss fight, and then you do it all again. You get all your way to Cert. You get to Cert by doing some fighting, some puzzles, some fighting, some puzzles, you fight Cert. Then, same thing for Valravn section. Fighting, puzzle, fighting, puzzle, fighting, puzzle, fighting, puzzle, fight Valravn. Okay? And then you get to that section where like you could get burned if you don't run fast enough, you don't stay away. And it really landed well because I hadn't really been doing that. But the problem with Hellblade 2 is like, dude, I've done enough running, I've done enough walking, I've done enough jogging, I don't need to do any more. So it didn't hit. It was just like, yeah, when you're in that dark area, Eugene, and you can't really see clearly, it's like your vision's blurred because it's so dark, and there's those like pulsating creatures that you can't get close to. Second and third time through, it's not that enjoyable because you know exactly what to do. You see the forest for the trees. But the first time, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. You're like, oh my gosh, you're like, your heart's pounding. The sheer volume of attack against you, Lono, is crazy. You just expressed your opinion. The prudent man ignores the insult. I don't pay any attention to it, man. I don't know what's being said about me and who's saying it, and I don't care. Everyone is talking like this is a 4 out of 10 game. How is it getting the same review scores as the first one? I don't think it's a 4. I think that's too low. I think I think a 4 out of 10 should be reserved for games that are disastrous, right? I think anything 6 and down should be just considered a disaster. I would give the game, based on what I've heard, seen, and what I've experienced myself, it's probably a 7. You know, to me, a 7 is mediocre. It just feels mediocre. It doesn't feel like a complete package. It feels kind of, you know, it's like wobbly. It's like it's heavily slanted in one direction. It's like a plane with all this weight on one side of on one of the wings, and so it's like it's just flying like this. It just feels super lopsided. When people insult you, they're just telling you that you're succeeding, or they're telling you that their soul is bent. On Christmas, they'll be shut down. I don't know about that. Not the scale debate again. So what scale debate? Oh, no, the numbers. Yeah. I don't care what you think a 6 is. I'm not going to debate what you think a 6 is. To me, a 6 is like, that's bad. 5 is just disaster. Anything below a 5, who gives a frick? Once a game's score is that low, why are we even talking about it? Like, once a game's getting like a 4 or a 3, who cares? That's like a golem, you know what I mean? And again, that's just for me. That's just my perspective. 7 and up is a good score. Would you recommend someone play it? I mean, if you've played the first game, and you enjoyed it, if you enjoyed Hellblade 1, I think Hellblade 2 is worth playing. But you have to know going in that you're getting a regression in the combat. You're getting a regression in gameplay. You're getting a regression in length. It's not as long. It's not as good. What's Reforge Roast? I saw a bot advertise. Reforge Roast is the coffee. This is my coffee. This is not a sponsor. We have a light roast and a dark roast. Currently, reforgeroast.com is currently it's down. We're making some changes, so it'll be available. It should be available tomorrow. We'll do a big announcement once it's ready again. Ginger Prime, good to see you. I've seen some of your comments, Ginger. I just haven't replied. Well, I did reply to the one. You said, how much do you think Game Pass factors into this? I never played Hellblade 1. I'm thinking of checking out Hellblade 2 because of Game Pass. You know what's funny, Ginger? It's too narratively driven. I think it would hurt, but I actually think just from a gameplay perspective, you could play Hellblade 2 first and probably be like, oh, okay, this is pretty good. This isn't so bad. And then you'd go to Hellblade 1 and be like, oh, this is better. Like, not graphically better. Hellblade 2 is one of the best looking games I've ever played. But Hellblade 1, I think the gameplay, the pacing, and the combat are so superior. They're just so good. All they had to do was take the combat and make it a little bit better, not completely change it. They completely changed it. That's the part that I don't get. I don't know if THC coffee is a thing. You can buy like THC drops, can't you? I don't, like, people put it in their tea. You might do that. It would be a good experiment. I would be really interested to see what it would be like for somebody to play them in the reverse order. Because you'd almost get all these little, like, you'd get all this foreshadowing and all these little notes and hints about Dillian and this voice of her dad. You know, you'd get all these little hints about, like, what is this about? And then the first game would tell you all of that. There you go, Kush Cups, cannabis-infused premium coffee. Bushin Ryu Cat with a 5 bomb puts us on the doorstep of that 25 goal where I give 5 back to the community. Thank you so much for doing that. Bushin Ryu Cat. Bushin Ryu. I'm not going to try to tell anybody that they shouldn't enjoy the game or that their opinion is wrong. The only thing I've strongly pushed back on is the notion that the first game didn't have very much combat, because it did. The second thing I push back on is that the combat wasn't that important in the first game, which has got to be one of the dumbest things I've ever seen people say about the first game. Right? It's like the flow of that game literally centers around combat. Go fight through bad guys and then go fight a boss, and then go fight through bad guys and then go fight a boss, and then fight through these bad guys and then fight through these bad guys, and then at the end of the game fight more bad guys. Like, anybody saying that is completely misrepresenting the first game. The other thing, people saying that this combat is exactly the same as the first game, I'm also pushing back on that. Those statements are false. They are not true. You can enjoy this combat. You can enjoy Hellblade 2 and say, I like it. I think it's cool. I think it's cinematic. Yep, that's totally fine. That's your opinion. You can say that. But you can't say any of the stuff about Hellblade 1, like there wasn't very much combat, or combat didn't play a big role, or this is exactly the same. Those are false statements. Those are not true statements. You can disprove them. All you gotta do is go look at the first game. All you gotta do is go play the first game. Sven says, from my perspective, Lono, which is why I was trying to carefully say how I can understand your issue with the combat, not trying to dismiss anyone else's issues. Yeah, I don't care if you like it. Just don't say things that aren't true about the first game. I'm a huge fan of the first game. You know what I'm saying? Wait. KT11 is saying, I know people are allowed an opinion, but why can't we call BS on the 10s and the 9s? Excuse me. Here's why I don't think we need to call out outlets and platforms who have a very measurable bias, okay? If you have Xbox in your name and you consistently give Xbox titles 9s and 10s, or maybe you gave Redfall an 8, I don't think there's a reason to be like, hey, those people are lying. I don't think we need to do that. I think you just say, that's a constant, that's a reality that exists, and it helps inform the consumer. Oh, hey, here's a platform, here's an outlet, here's a person who leans heavy Xbox. Well, yeah, they're going to call it a masterpiece and give it a 10. Cool. You can go listen to them and glean information. You can say, okay, they like this, 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 and this. And then you can come to someone who leans against Xbox. And guess what? They're going to be overly critical. Right? The ponies are having a field day on Twitter. They're loving this. I'm not loving this. Did you see me tweeting like crazy yesterday? Did you see me galloping around? Yeah, it's bad. Woo! No. Well, that's what the ponies are doing. Because the ponies are just the other side of the same coin. They're just the other side of the same coin. It's an opportunity to bash the platform that they don't like. So, you filter out both sides of that coin, which is why I don't appreciate being lumped in with the ponies. It's like, I'm not celebrating this. I'm angry. I'm disappointed. I was genuinely sad yesterday. Like, emotionally, it was a downer. Like, I was down. I was low. Like, this game's important to me. The first game is important to me. So that's why I'm like sitting here telling you, I'm like, this has nothing to do with the platforms that I like or dislike or where I lean. Like, there's nothing about this to celebrate. It's irritating. It's a bummer. I disagree with the direction they took with their game. Eurogamer gave it a 10? I thought Eurogamer gave it a 9. Did they give it a 10? I can't remember. Hellblade 1 was like a 9. So this sounds more like a 7. Still worthy. I just say go into it with your eyes wide open. I think you can enjoy it. I think there are aspects of it to enjoy. Right? I do. I think there are aspects of it to enjoy. Just hearing Senua get back into the... When she says some of the lines that she says, like, I'm going to kill your gods, and she's basically allowing her darkness and her trauma to make her stronger. Oh, I loved that. I thought that was magnificent. When she chooses to not kill the guy and the music swells as she makes the decision and she realizes he's like me. Oh, I loved that. There are moments, there are elements of this game that if you liked the first game, I think you can have a great time, but you just have to know what you're signing up for. The combat, you may love the combat. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you that you're not going to like it. I'm just warning you that the combat is vastly different. That's objectively true. That the combat is vastly different. Your like or dislike for the combat, that's subjective to each individual person. For me personally, I really, really, really don't like it. You may think it's great, or you may think it's passable and not this big distraction. You know? In console allegiances, I wonder how multiplats that what each side thinks of them. I don't know why people are celebrating for a game to be bad. It's just not healthy, I don't think. Well, more people are also interested in being like, I was right, which I've even tried to move away from that. Like, I used to do that all the time. I would make a prediction, and then we would do like an I told you so stream, or be like, yep, told you that, I told you. And then I started seeing other people do it, and I was like, that's just not a good look. I'm going to try to stop doing that. Now, I might make mention of and say, this was a concern that we had, we were worried this was going to happen, and now it has happened. I think that's a different way of saying it. Instead of being like, ha, I was right. That comment was comedy gold. Yeah, I'm just not letting any of that in the door today, Valiant. I'll read it. Someone said, bro, you spoiled, entitled pieces of garbage Gen Z mistakes. This game, along with every game that's dropped now, is amazing. I'm so sick and tired of seeing America not appreciate anything. It reads like satire. America. You Gen Z mistakes. You can like hear their face shaking. You Gen Z mistakes. Oh, golly. We need a little bit of levity. That was funny. I'm 42, by the way, but okay. I was born in 81. All of a sudden, I'm Gen Z. Oh, my gosh. Combat in the first game was better just because of the camera perspective. Well, yeah, I mean, it's an artistic... I'll say this. It's an artistic decision that hijacked mechanical decisions. Does that make sense? Was watching Jez play last night. The thing that stood out to me was how they made the motion extremely slow just to extend the length of the game. I mean, I don't know about that. How is it a step backwards? So in my latest video, Dante, I called it a regressive disappointment. It's an upload. So right now you're watching the live stream discussion after the fact. So you can go watch this later. I can give you Cliff's Notes right now. But if you appreciate me giving you the Cliff's Notes, do me a solid and go watch the video, give it a like and a comment, okay? Because I'm basically making it to where you don't have to go watch the video, all right? So, you know, let's have a little trade of value here, okay? So basically what I do in the video, and this is why it still is worth watching it. My editor did a really good job. My producer did a great job with the video. I basically showcase how prevalent and how good, fast, fluid, and player agency driven the combat was in Hellblade 1. Okay, I showcase a couple of things. The Blood River fight, where there's like waves of enemies, and then the Valravn fight, and then the Cert fight, okay? So I show those to show combat was integral, combat was a huge part of the game. And then I show how you lose all of that in the second game. Fluidity, gone. Player agency, gone. Multi-target fights, gone. It's a completely different style of combat. And I break down at a technical level, at like a mechanical level, what the combat is doing in Hellblade 2 and why I just think it's so unenjoyable. You might be totally fine with it. I make a very strong case in the video that the combat is completely different, and I conclude that it is a regression. You may not conclude that it's a regression, and that's okay, but it's objectively true to say that the combat's completely different. It's a completely different approach. It's an artistic choice that I think hijacked mechanical decision-making. It's like they wanted the presentation and the mocap and all of that to be just top priority, and the mechanics of the fight, I believe, suffer underneath the weight of it. A 2-spot from William Lewis. You don't look a day over 12. Thank you very much. And then Bushin Ryu Cat with a $5 super chat tip says, if the devs want their games bought and not only enjoyed as a stream watch, they need to keep players engaged. Real controls, dialogue choices, etc. I don't think you need dialogue choices in this game. I just think that you need to be more in control of what's going on. And I also think the pacing is an issue. It is a slow, lots of walking game, and clear times are around 5 or 6 hours. You can't have the player walking for long stretches of a game that only lasts for 5 or 6 hours. That feels like a giant pacing mistake. Alexander Harris with the $5 super chat tip. Is this a Ninja Theory thing or a Microsoft thing? Because it seems like things they are involved in lately aren't good. Okay, so I will strongly argue that the state of Hellblade 2 has nothing to do with Microsoft or Xbox. I will strongly argue that. I think I can argue it rather compellingly. If you look at everything that Ninja Theory focused on from the earliest moments of showing this game and talking about this game, this is their vision. This is their vision. The only thing, I'll lay a teeny slice of blame at Xbox's and Microsoft's feet. I think they could have taken more time with the game, optimized it to get 60 FPS on the Series X, and they maybe could have smoothed out the combat. I don't think you can change the combat system. It's too foundational. I don't think you can change the pacing. I don't think you can change the length of the game, but they could have smoothed some of those rough edges. Xbox could have let them take a little bit more time. The director saying, oh no, we've been ready for a long time. Yeah, well, the director for Jedi Survivor said the same dadgum thing. I don't trust it. I think this game had to come out second quarter because they missed their first quarter big release because Stalker 2 got delayed. That's a teeny slice of blame that I'm going to give to Xbox. The fact that Ninja Theory is bigger, the fact that they only took 3 years of full production to build it, and the fact that they so heavily focus on presentation and mocap and all that, I lay that at Ninja Theory's feet. I think they went too far in one direction. let me just thank this thing. Hang on. Mike S. with 12 months of members. That's a whole year, Mike. So what you're saying is that it took you longer to beat Moog the other night than it took you to beat Hellblade 2. Stay amazing. Love the content. Thank you so much, Mike. And then 20 months from Hellfire says, I added Princess Diana as my profile on my Xbox, but unfortunately, she's only on the dash. Oh, I'm not even reading the punchline. Hellfire, that's nasty. That's not nice. That's not nice. What was I saying? Ninja Theory, I lay the blame on them. Oh, yeah, okay. So, the way I view Hellblade 1, Hellblade 1 is like 60-40, 70-30. It's more heavily weighted as an experience over being like an action game. This is why whenever Corey and I would debate this, he would be like, it's not a good action game. And I'm like, yeah, it's not really trying to be a good action game. It's more about an experience. So if you can picture like scales in your mind, my hand's lower over here. There's more weight over here. 60 to 70% of the focus was on just this experience, right? And so the gameplay isn't this super in-depth thing. It's very basic. The combat's basic. The puzzle solving is good, but again, it's very basic. The areas are not very large, right? It's a more scaled down game. That's how your scales are, okay? 60-40, something like that. My view of Hellblade 2 is it's like the scale just slams down on one side. It's like all they cared about was the experience. All they cared about was the presentation, and the gameplay just slid off. It's like the game just sort of, it's like it's not a video game. It's so much more of like a cinematic experience than it is a video game. Like the scales are so imbalanced that you end up with the product that doesn't. And this is why there are people that are like, it's amazing. It's a 9. It's a 10. Why? They're focused on everything that's over here. The people that liked the stuff over here, good pacing, good combat, good rhythmic moving from thing to thing, right? All those people are like, yo, where the frick is the game? Like, what happened? That's why the reviews are polarizing. People are looking at one side of the scale and they're saying, where's the gameplay? Why is the combat like this? The other people that are looking at and we saw this yesterday with Games Radar, their review. What was her name? Jasmine? Her review focused on all of those things. The cinematics, the story, the audio, and Senua. So, it's a masterpiece. So if you only look at that side of the scale, you're going to come away from this game and you're going to be like, 10 out of 10, amazing. And it's likely going to win awards because of that. If you're trying to find something more in the middle as a blend of the two, or you're trying to look for that gameplay, you're trying to look for that combat, you're going to be disappointed. Yo, DK Baker with 19 months in VIP says, so close to a year. So close to 2 years. I think you meant to say DK Baker. Eugene says, Xbox leadership is supposed to direct these studios and provide roadblocks when necessary. Okay, I'm going to push back on that, Eugene. I want you to imagine that your Xbox leadership, and you see that first trailer and you're like, y'all can do that with that engine? Yo, go to town. Make a great game. Oh, you guys are doing great work over there. Here's some more funding. Yeah, do some hiring. Yeah, they've done hiring since like 2019, 2020. Okay, they've gone up from, roughly, I think they were lower than 100 employees and they were at 100. Now they're like 142. Okay. Then I want you to look at the next trailer, Eugene. The beach trailer and the giant in the cave. That trailer got a ton of attention. So much attention that people were like, there's no way that's gameplay. Like, there's no way. There are people that doubted. Now, it ended up in the game. They have trimmed some of it down. Some of the draw distance has been reined in to make it run. Because, like, the original thing is, like, you could see for forever. It just seemed unbelievable. So they have reined it in. But it's in the game. Hang on, I gotta take a minute. Okay. So, if you're Xbox leadership And you're looking at any of that. Leadership isn't looking at the trailers. They're playing the game. So, Eugene, you think that Xbox leadership put their hands on this game and wouldn't think, gorgeous. This is going to be such a great technical showcase. This is wonderful. All the audio design is great. Oh, the combat looks incredible. Like, I can't see Xbox leadership putting their hands on this game and being like, thank you so much. Like, look at the previews. There were gaming outlets. There were gaming journalists that played this game for 40 to 45 minutes, and they're like, this is phenomenal. How's Xbox leadership supposed to see through all that and be like, it's a big mistake? Have you seen the clip debating whether or not this is a win for Xbox? What are your thoughts on that? One's perspective seemed to lean that this is a win because of the technical achievement. You're not a leader if you're not actually engaging and giving them the team direction and feedback. I think you guys are overstating what you think executives at Xbox can do. If you think they're going to go to every studio and provide direction, I think, number one, I think that that's an incredibly dumb idea. We don't want them doing that. You want these teams to have autonomy. You want these teams to own their direction, own their view, and make a great game. You don't want an Xbox executive coming in the room and playing and being like, well, I tell you what would make this really great is if there's a battle royale. Like, no. You guys are flipping the world upside down. I do not want Xbox leadership going to studios and being like, you should really change the direction of this game. Like, anybody who saw or put their hands on Hellblade 2 were singing its praises. I can't expect Xbox leadership to come to a different conclusion. I can't. Yoshida doesn't let this game release. I can't speak to that. Have you seen the God of War documentary? Santa Monica was on the verge of closure. God of War 2018 was their last chance to keep existing. Sony trusted them and expanded the studio. There's no leadership within the gaming division currently. Satya Nadella is calling the shots and has been for a couple of months. Now, I agree with Satya calling the shots, but I don't think you can have Phil Spencer going to studios and being like, oh yeah, Hellblade 2 is a disaster, don't launch it. It's a huge technical achievement. It's likely going to win awards for its graphics, its sound design, its voice acting, its performances, its music. If they walk away from the Game Awards and Hellblade 2 wins 2 to maybe 3 awards that I think they're a shoe-in for, I think Xbox considers that a win. I don't think they saw Hellblade 2 as a system seller. I don't think they saw Hellblade 2 being some big commercial success. They saw Hellblade 2 as a game to hit Game Pass and to show off technical prowess. And it does that. It does that. I don't think you can call Hellblade 2 a failure. I don't think you can. I think that's overstating it. I'm disappointed. I think it's a regression. But I also said in my video, because I'm usually, and anytime I cover stuff like this, I'm usually very nuanced. I said in that video, here's 5 minutes of things that are amazing. Oh, by the way, the 5 minutes that are amazing, the graphics, the sound design, the music, the writing, the voice acting, the tone, the story, those are all things that will likely be nominated and subsequently win awards. My disappointment is the regression with respect to the game's length, the combat, and the pacing. It feels like a huge step backwards from how great the first game was. I don't think that translates into Hellblade 2 as a failure. I don't think so. It does exactly that, and the $49.99 price tag can't get overlooked. They knew. More gameplay in this stream than Hellblade 2. Thank you, Bush and Ryo, for the $2 Super Chat tip. Now, I will not get on the train that says Xbox sucks, another Xbox failure. I'm like, no. This is not a Redfall. This is not a Forza Motorsport. This is a overbaked art-directed game. It's just they overbaked the art direction and the vision and the presentation. I don't lay this at Xbox's feet as like, yeah, it's another failure. Xbox just ruins games. It's like, No, Ninja Theory went full, and I'm blaming them, and I think that they're still going to get recognized for their achievements. What's the difference between failure and disappointment? Doesn't one lead to another? No. No. You can be really disappointed in a game, and it's not a failure. Like, you could look at a game and say, I really wish they would have done something different here. But it's not a failure. A failure would be like utter disaster, broken, buggy, glitchy, people are refunding. It has a great score on Steam from the user base. It has a good score on the Xbox storefront. And the review outlets are largely giving it favorable. There are outlets that are giving it high praise, low praise, and then everything in between. I can't view that as a failure. I don't think it gets a Game of the Year nomination. But I think it gets a ton of other nominations. It's going to clean house at Game Awards. Well, it'll clean up some of those categories. It's really going to clean house at DICE. You frickin' watch. Hellblade 2 is going to get a ton of awards at DICE. Devs are going to look at this game and say, man, the stuff you guys did, holy mackerel. What a gorgeous game. What great performance. Melina Juergens is set to get a bunch of awards again, no doubt. She's going to win stuff at Game Awards, BAFTAs, and DICE. I have zero doubt in my mind that she walks away with more awards again. I don't doubt it for a second. You guarantee it's a financial failure? It was never going to not be a financial failure. It's a small game from a small studio with a niche offering of style and gameplay, and it doesn't have broad market appeal, and they threw it on Game Pass. How could it not be a financial failure? It's set up to not be commercially successful with the way that Microsoft and Xbox operates. You can't take a niche game from a small studio that doesn't have broad market appeal and throw it on Game Pass and expect it to be like a commercial powerhouse. That was never going to happen. That has nothing to do with the game's quality. It was always going to be that. It was always going to be a lower selling game. It just was. It's the kind of game that it is. People that are parading around the numbers on Steam versus Ghost of Tsushima. Listen. To quote King Thrash, look. Y'all look stupid. You do. You guys are parading around Ghost of Tsushima numbers versus this game. Ghost of Tsushima has broad market appeal. It's basically the samurai Assassin's Creed game that everybody wanted for the past decade. So it's hugely popular. And you're going to pit it against a 100-person studio niche game. Like, y'all looking dumb. I'm just going to say it. Well, look at the player numbers. Like, it's not even a fair comparison. It isn't. This game is niche. This game has a narrow market that's going to want to play it. It never stood a chance against these other games. Like, that's not even an expectation worth talking about. If you thought that Hellblade 2 stood a chance of, like, skyrocketing on the Steam charts and being hugely commercially successful, I thought it was going to have more pre-orders than it did. I was a little disappointed to see the pre-orders, landing lower. But, like, comparing it to Tsushima? Come on. That's dumb. That's ignorant, and you know it's ignorant. You're just winning pony points. That's all. Tsushima was nominated for Game of the Year. Like, it's a 4-year-old, well-known, well-reviewed, especially the director's cut, the review score went up. I still could never go back in time and understand how the original Ghost of Tsushima scored so low, but the director's cut kind of turned things around. Maybe because it just plays better at 60 FPS. I don't know. It looks beautiful on the PS5. Maybe that helped. I don't know. I got some people to thank. Hang on. True SSJ Havoc with 19 months in a VIP. I'm at 19 months. Almost 2 years. I said yesterday, Kids Move bet Hellblade 2 would get an 86 or higher. He's betting curse. He always loses. He bet against the Eagles in the Super Bowl in 2017. Well, I guess you know where not to bet then. Tenor Dude with 32 months in a VIP. Thank you so much, Tenor Dude. This was supposed to be Xbox's best game of the year. Who said that? Stalker 2's coming out this year. Indiana Jones is coming out this year. Those are probably more broadly recognized than Hellblade 2. Now, Hellblade 2 is going to earn some prestige for the brand. And another 5-bomb from Alexander Harris. And he hits 25 members. He's the one who secures it. I owe you guys 5 members, and I'm going to do it right now. Thank you so much for doing that, Alexander Harris. That brings your guys' total this week as we work our way toward the 400 goal. I'm sorry, hang on. We got a 76, and then we had a 58, and now we have 25. You guys are currently at 160. You're falling a little bit behind today. You guys are going to have to put it in overdrive if you want that 400 goal for Friday night. On Friday nights, I do streams with my wife, and the members get to come. All members, including gifteds, get to come to that. So, no, Fable's not this year. Detective C says, I'm going to push back on that because Hellblade 1 sold 1 million copies in the first 10 months with over 6.3 million players across all plats in 2021. Ghost has 9.7 million units sold as of 22. So wait, hang on though. You think that Ghost single platform close to 10 million and you're going to compare it to 6 million players across multi-plat release? I think Hellblade garnered a lot more attention than we are saying. Yeah, but you're not disputing what I was talking about, Detective Seeds. I was talking about broad market appeal. Which game do you think appeals to more people? Ghost of Tsushima or Hellblade 2? I'm talking broad market appeal. We know that games like Tsushima are largely popular. Open world action adventure games. Look at Horizon and its success. Look at Tsushima. Look at Zero Dawn, Forbidden West, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Spider-Man 2. Look at Assassin's Creed games, okay? I'm talking broad market appeal. Tsushima, you can't compare Tsushima to Hellblade 2. One is way more likely to be purchased by people than the other. It's going to fare worse than Hellblade 1? Of course it's going to fare worse than Hellblade 1. It's a single console platform release, and they didn't market it that much. And they threw it on Game Pass. It's not a fair comparison. No, I wasn't talking sales numbers. I was talking like, which game has more broad market appeal? Especially right now. Samurai, just the idea of playing as a samurai is really hot. You got Shogun, and you got everybody anxious for AC Shadows. Like, that's just a well-timed release on PC for Tsushima. A 2-spot from True SSJ Havoc. Who said that? I don't really care to mention. There's just no reason to mention a bunch of people who are talking nonsense. One dude was comparing Hellblade 2 to God of War this morning. It shouldn't. Hellblade 1 was the same. Hardly marketed single console release. Okay, hardly marketed single console release, and it sort of grew in prestige and word of mouth, right? It wasn't this knockdown, drag out, commercially explosive game. It wasn't. It sold 1 million copies in the first 10 months. That's a nice slow burn of growth, like word of mouth spread, like it was a popular game for the size, okay? For its size. This game is in a completely different scenario. They're throwing it on Game Pass, so you're going to have a ton of people try it, not complete it. That's a common thing with Game Pass. They barely marketed it. Oh, and they didn't put it on the platform where it originally launched as a timed exclusive and probably sold most of its copies. So, of course it's not going to do as well. There's this one streamer that won't show about how much he loves the first Hellblade. I'm so tired of that dude. Yeah, we do have a lot of people here, guys. Make sure you take a second and smash the like button. Let's get 400 likes. We've had somewhere between 800 and 900 people here. I'm wearing a new pair of frames from Gamer Advantage. They sent me some lenses. They sent these frames by mistake to me, and I said, hey, they look really nice. Could I get some lenses for them? And the name of these frames are Walden. Walden. Now, you might think they're the Horizons, but they're not the Horizons. These are Walden frames. They're very light. They're very nice. If you want blue light blocking glasses, you're staring at screens all day, use my code over at Gamer Advantage. You can use the glasses command in chat. There's also a link in the description below. And a 10 bomb comes in from Detective Seeds. He takes us to 35. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. This guy's platinuming games on YouTube. he signs up for pain, chat. You think I sign up for pain fighting Moog? What's the game you're going to platinum next, you maniac? Was it Elden Ring? Is that the one? Jiminy Christmas. Good luck. We'll see you. We'll see you in a couple of years. I don't think. Is that one that hard to platinum? It's probably Valhalla's the one that is. Would take even longer. I do wonder why Xbox acquired Ninja Theory. Maybe it was to expand their game repertoire, but still weird. I would think it was similar to the Starfield motivation. I think they saw a game that did well on PlayStation, anticipated the sequel, going to PlayStation again, and they probably said, we want that. A bit of pushback. Hellblade 2 was announced along the Series X. It was supposed to be a system seller. Well, yeah, Stellar Blade is this week, then AC Origins, then Elden Ring. People in chat are saying Elden Ring's not that hard, actually, to platinum. You'll probably be able to pull it off. Okay, here's the thing, Elsewhere Broadcast. I appreciate your pushback, but I think what you're forgetting is 2019 is when they did the Project Scarlet marketing. That was before everything with the Series X took a back seat. As soon as the Xbox Series S enters the picture, Series X gets shuffled to the back seat. They've not once done a showcase where they were like, this game has been optimized and it's best played on the Series X. They can't do that because they constrain Series X production. They sold more Series S's. So you're not wrong. I actually called the game out for that. The original trailer said it was being built for the Series X. And I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. If Hellblade 2 is being built for Series X, why is it 30 FPS? You don't get custom games built for the Series X. So it's not a system seller because Microsoft's entire strategy shifted and changed. They're not trying to sell systems. They're not. It's not their priority anymore. Look at the sales numbers, for Pete's sakes. They don't expect to sell systems with anything. Starfield didn't make a dent. You think Hellblade 2 is? Starfield was the most talked about game of 2023. The single most new Game Pass subscribers in a single day. And it didn't move the needle on hardware. You think Hellblade 2 was going to do that? No. It's sad, but we probably won't see a game like Hellblade 2 again. A narrative-driven game with such high production values are probably too niche and expensive for companies to sink money into. Yeah, I don't think that's a bad prediction. It is expensive, yeah. And look how short the game ended up being, because it just takes so long to probably do everything. Like, if they wanted to add a whole nother chapter, I mean, how much time would that have taken, right? You got to mocap everything. Microsoft 0 for 2 on games that would have got me to buy an Xbox. It looks beautiful on the Series S also. I was expecting it to be blurry. I mean, I'm glad you're enjoying it, but I think 30 FPS looks blurry. So, you think the quality of the end product is justified by the marketing? I brought the FF7 Rebirth for the same reason. I don't understand your question. You think the quality of the end product is justified by the marketing? What do you mean? Alan Wake 2 did a similar thing, though, narrative-driven. And it hasn't made profit, right? They didn't do a physical release. It's again, you don't have broad appeal. for a game like Alan Wake. That's a niche audience. The niche audience game. It's going to be 60 FPS when it's ported to the PS5. Maybe. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a pattern. It'll get a 60 FPS patch on the Series X the way Starfield did. And then, 6 months later it lands on PS5 or something like that. By the way, how is Starfield at 60 FPS? I was supposed to get back in town and test that out, but Hellblade just took over all my attention. How is it? Is it stable? Has anybody done a breakdown of that update? That hit last week, didn't it, while I was out of town? Alan Wake 2 wasn't on Steam. That's its primary issue. Oh, well, that really hurts. Why didn't they put it on Steam? What the frick? Why would you ever avoid... Why would you avoid Steam? Did they get a deal with Epic? Was it an Epic exclusive or something? Digital Foundry did one. Jake says smooth. Starfield performance is fantastic from what I've seen. It's still mid. I'm not talking about the game itself. I'm talking about performance. Detective Seed says, I couldn't catch the beginning of the show, but I have two main complaints of my playtime. Combat regression in terms of mechanics and flow, and the puzzles felt like more filler than actual challenge. Right. Detective Seeds, the first puzzle I encounter... Not looking for runes. I'm fine with the looking for runes being somewhat basic. I like it. It's enjoyable. Okay. It's enjoyable. The first actual, I guess you could say, puzzle that I encountered was where you go and you grab the torch and you push through like the broken glass barriers. You can't even call it a puzzle. It's just trial and error. It's like, oh, okay, so I can get through these barriers with this. Okay, next area. Oh, I have two choices. One choice has an ominous glowing red light that kills me, and the other doesn't. Ooh, what a riveting puzzle. Like, what the frick? That's like an indie intern first video game level puzzle. Like, there's nothing to it. Like, what? I go up to the barrier, I take 2 or 3 steps and I look and see, oh, there's a red light. And I just walk back and go to a different one. Like, what? The first game, you find these arches. And when you go around them, you see through them, they change reality itself. Which is just a wonderful, subversive way to make it seem as though Senua isn't seeing things. She's not seeing reality accurately, like she's delusional. And so the first puzzle I encounter, I'm like, oh, this is going to be cool, man. Let me go get this torch. And then I go through it and I'm like, what the frick was that? It just feels like filler. It's like, what was that? Why did I do that? It just took up a bunch of time for nothing. Now, I had good dialogue with the dad. He's telling me that I'll never escape this and all this stuff. But it's like, okay, you could have done that with a 60-second cutscene, not a section of gameplay. I know what you're talking about. There was no real challenge to me as a player to figure out my path forward. I felt like Hellblade 2 gave me more beauty and audio, but they took everything else from it away. Are you in the cave systems yet? I don't know. We just ran. Last night when I played, we ran from some crazy-looking person, and the guy threw a spear at her. And then we climbed up through a well, and then we ran, and now I'm going to go try to find these people to fight the giants with. Microsoft wants to purchase Steam again to ensure 100% profit rather than dealing with Steam's cut. That'd be real bad for the industry. You do not want Microsoft owning Steam. Thank you, Lone Wolf. I'll check that out later. I don't know how anybody that has seen what's happened with Activision Blizzard and what's happened with Xbox, I can't imagine anybody being like, "Oh yeah, let's let them own Steam." That'll go over real good. This guy says, "You don't own the games you buy on Steam. Are you that clueless in 2024?" Well, this is a giant misconception about ownership. You own a license to the game. And yes, licenses can be revoked, but there is some level of consumer protection that if suddenly they revoked my license to play Escape Simulator, or they revoke my license to play No Rest for the Wicked, well, they have to provide a reason if it's not like an online game. And if they revoke everybody's licenses just for no reason, you're going to deal with class action. People would say, now, wait a minute, we paid for that license. Why are you just randomly taking it away? Now, your level of control of your ownership has been greatly diminished. It has been. But they're not leasing the software to you. You purchased a license. That license, yes, it can be revoked, but the likelihood of that happening would be catastrophic, commercially catastrophic for anybody that tries to do it. The only thing that people are losing access to right now are old games that are being deprecated and the servers are no longer available. And that's being used to fearmonger, to be like, well, you don't own your games, so yay pro piracy, and then, you know, it's a great way to justify stealing. You don't own a physical copy of the game, but you own a license to play the game that would then have to be revoked. And there'd have to be reasoning provided. They can't just be like, yeah, we just revoked it. It says that we can for whatever reason that we want. Yeah, go ahead and try that. See how that goes if Steam just starts revoking licenses because they feel like it. You think class action's easy for an individual? So no, it's a lease. It operates as a lease. Class action's not easy for the individual, but there are government protections and there are consumer protection laws. The government would step in. It wouldn't work. Like, this fear that they're just going to start taking licenses away just because why? Well, we're going to charge you a license renewal fee. Again, I really don't think that is high on the probability scale. Is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? No, because it would be commercially destructive for Steam to do that. And there are consumer protections in place. I wouldn't even be surprised if digital ownership gets its own round of legislation of consumer protection. The government cares about money, not people. I mean, the FTC operates to protect the consumer, and they tried to do that in their attempt to file for an injunction and try to block the Activision Blizzard merger. Somebody at some level would step in and say, you can't do this to the consumer. You can't just revoke ownership because you freaking feel like it. And you also can't just randomly be like, oh, we're going to charge you money to maintain your license. Every company that tries to create an ecosystem is interested in creating that ecosystem. Every time they revoke the license, they damage their own effort. I think that that's correct. I think the reason that Steam has been so successful is because they are so consumer forward. They're like, you don't like the game, here's your money back. They are probably the most, it's the most consumer protected environment where you can buy a video game is Steam. You go buy your physical copy, open it up, put it in, play it, and decide you don't like it. Go try to get your money back. You can't. You could trade it in for diminished value. If I play a game on Steam and I don't like it, I get my money back. Like, the idea that people approach Steam and they're like, oh, I'm going to pirate games for game preservation. It's literally the most consumer protected environment that you could buy a video game in. And you're justifying piracy because, well, I don't want to lose access to my games, you know, they might do that in the future. I understand how Steam works. It is what it is. I'm just stating the obvious that other moron acted clueless to. I mean, there's no reason to call names, but the point is that I don't think that's a likely outcome. And if it in fact does happen, I believe the market would correct it and keep it from happening. I think we underestimate the power of the consumer. Look at what happened with Helldivers 2 as a test case. Yeah, we're going to require you to sign in. The frick you are. Yeah, we're just going to revoke licenses. Yeah, go for it. See how that goes for you. The market would react. You would never get away with it. You would immediately see catastrophic results. You are empowered as a consumer to organize and to brigade and to boycott. Like, it would be absolutely catastrophic for them to do that, to just start pulling shenanigans with licenses. Why can't they say schizophrenia? I'm not sure what you mean with a $2 super chat tip when you cry. I'm not sure what you're talking about. You talk about turning the consumer away and going somewhere else with their business. That's exactly what they would do. Ubisoft revoked licenses for The Crew. Yeah. They did. That's a different animal. Any game that requires servers to be played, you're going to lose access to one day. It's going to happen with Destiny 1. It's going to happen with The Division 1. It's going to happen with games like that. You're going to lose access one day. It's very likely that 15 years in the future, you won't be able to play Helldivers 2. It's very likely. There might be a different Helldivers at that point. Who knows what's going to happen? You honestly think that, like, you're always going to be able to play those games? No, of course not. Eventually, games run their course. Servers get deprecated. Studios move on. Sometimes studios shut down. It's unavoidable. And you know that when you buy the game. In Hellblade 2, it's called Psychosis. Well, because they're different things. Or maybe psychosis is the parent expression. Psychosis refers to a collection of symptoms that affect the mind where there has been some loss of contact with reality. So it's more generic. Now, schizophrenia usually involves delusions, false beliefs, hallucinations, seeing or hearing things that don't exist, unusual physical behavior, and disorganized thinking and speech. It is common that people with schizophrenia but have paranoid thoughts or they hear voices. Now, schizophrenia is probably a type of psychosis, is it not? Wouldn't it be categorized as a form of psychosis? Right? So I think they're just going more generic with it. They're like, yeah, she's experiencing psychosis, which is an accurate description of what's going on. They don't have to label it schizophrenia. All schizophrenia is psychosis, but not all psychosis is schizophrenia. Yeah, because wouldn't dementia be a form of psychosis as well? Like late life dementia is probably a form of psychosis. Is Alzheimer's a form of psychosis? Well, no, I think Alzheimer's is linked to actual brain function not working right or shutting down. I actually don't know. This guy's working on a collective class action lawsuit for shutting down The Crew. I don't think they'll be successful because, again, that's not a game that. Well, I mean, the only thing that might be successful is I think the issue with The Crew that people took was that they could have removed the online requirement and allowed you to play offline. But I think the challenge there is there's no business impetus for them to do that. Like asking them to spend bandwidth and dev time to push out that update, I think is an unlikely. You're gonna have an unlikely outcome there. Schizophrenia. I've heard it pronounced both ways. Kind of hard to build a class action lawsuit with 10 people. You experience psychosis from different underlying causes, including schizophrenia. As a person who is close to Ebbing, a registered psychologist, schizophrenia is a maladaptive form of psychosis, as is OCD at some levels. There you go. Proper regulation creates the business need. Is the Microsoft buying Valve to have legitimacy? Oh, I think Microsoft would buy everything if they could. They would. They would buy everything if they could. They would buy Nintendo. They would buy Steam or Valve. They would. Microsoft are corporate raiders. They're corporate raiders. It's what they do. That's why so many people last year made me laugh when they're like, this is going to be good for the consumer. And I'm like, do you even have any idea who you're talking about? I was thinking your thumbnail should have just said whelp. That seems to go well on Twitter. I couldn't believe that tweet, Detective Seeds. I was like, goodness gracious. You want to make games like this? You have to make offline available when you turn the servers off. I don't agree. Yeah, I don't agree. I don't think Helldivers 2, I don't think the developers should be forced to develop an offline mode. I disagree with that. They should be free to enter the market with a game that has the understanding of server requirement, online requirement, and you buy the game knowing that if the servers are down, you can't play. You buy the game knowing that if the servers go down one day, if the company goes bankrupt and shuts down, that you don't get access to the game. I don't think you get to dictate to the studios, like, if you're going to make a live service game, you have to do the extra work of making an offline mode. No, I don't agree with that at all. Not in the least. They should be well within their right. They enter the market with the product, and if you want to buy it, you understand what you're signing up for. Over the government agrees. Yeah, if the government starts requiring any kind of live service game to offer an offline mode, especially for a studio like the size of Arrowhead, I think that's a giant mistake. That's like undue harm. You're going to make them take on all this extra work? It might not even be possible. How the frick would you play Helldivers offline? Just you by yourself? Well, then they got what? They got to make bots to come down with you, I guess. I don't know. The whole ethos of Helldivers wouldn't work in offline mode. What's the Galactic War Table going to do? I guess they'd have to create their own scripted version of like how the war transpires. I don't know. So much of the game functions and features live server side for a reason. It would run like crap local. Right, like what do you do with a game that runs things server side? Like all of a sudden you gotta make that run on the console, on the box. Do not purchase future games like that. They will have to flip the switch. I don't think you're going to see anybody avoid buying games like Helldivers 2. If it's fun, they'll buy it and they'll play it. And if in 10 or 15 years the whole thing shuts down, who the frick cares? Where's this expectation that if you buy a game like that, you're entitled to play it for forever when it's an online game? Like, I don't know where that expectation comes from. This weird, like, everything needs to be like a Mario cartridge. I just don't get it. I think it's doe-eyed and naive. You give users the ability to host their own servers. Yeah, I think it's undue harm to ask developers to add in all this extra, development time and infrastructure and updates. No, I don't want developers to have to do that. That's ridiculous. Like, live service games struggle as it is. You want to ask them to do more? You want to ask a studio that struggled to even get Helldivers to a stable position, hey, by the way, if you want to launch a game like that, you also have to build in an offline mode. What? No. Well, in 10 years, if you're going to deprecate the game and shut the servers down, you have to offer people an offline mode and the ability to host their own servers. They're like, no, we don't. Why are we going to take on cost that results in no profit? What are you even talking about? That's not that. You're basically being like, hey, can you inflict harm on your business just because we think you should ideologically? Cost of doing business, we do it all the time. Yeah, I completely disagree with this particular exercise of it. We make companies take on extra costs to incur safety so you don't drink a bottle of something and die or eat meat and die. yes, we do things to protect people from actual harm, but the idea that, like, if you launch a live service game to protect this player from the unseen future date when the servers shut down, you have to spend extra time, money, bandwidth, and resources to build an offline mode. I think that that's ridiculous. I think that's ridiculous. The cost of doing business that we're doing for the benefit of 7 people. Yeah, by that time, who are we even doing all this work for? People want to be able to play a game forever, but most will likely not play a game after the first time they play the game, and most never beat the game the first time. Yeah, I don't think the expectation of a live service game makes any sense to think that, like, well, I should be able to play this for forever, and even in like 15 years, I should be able to host my own server. I think that expectation's just foolhardy. Like, what? If I'm in charge, we're putting an explicit expiration date on every live service game. It's printed on the box. Creature says, just the idea of giving a company $50 makes them obligated to you for your entire life is insane. It's insane. Yeah, it's insanity. Like, hey, I gave you $50 7 years ago. You got to do work for me now so that I can keep playing the game. What? What are you even talking about? You bought the game. You got a valued transaction complete. You played the game for years. You're entitled to nothing at that point if it's a live service game. You're entitled to nothing. You own nothing. You've been playing a game on their servers. You've been playing a game in their ecosystem. Like, it's not even yours at that point. You've been given a license to come and play. It's no different than like World of Warcraft or EverQuest or any other MMORPG that might shut down one day. Everything gone. Disappeared into the ether if they shut down. They don't owe you anything. Like imagine that, you know, like I bought I've purchased movies on Amazon, and what if in the future through a series of terrible and unfortunate events, Amazon just disappears from the face of the earth as a platform and I suddenly lose all those movies? What am I going to say? Hey, I had a right to those, I owned those, and you got to figure out how I can have access to those for forever. No, that's the risk you take with digital ownership. The company may disappear one day. Now, obviously, Amazon is a safer bet than most. It would be like buying something and owning it on like a Google server or something. They're too endemic to reality. They would just get absorbed by somebody. They wouldn't disappear like that. They're too integral. Google, Amazon, these companies would never like just disappear like that. They would just get absorbed by somebody else. And then everything would still keep going. Your license would just transfer. I do hate with games like NBA 2K get shut down after only 2 years. Forza also shuts their servers fairly quickly, in my opinion. I think it's completely fair to be frustrated by it and to express that you don't like it. I don't think you want to start legislating to these companies that if they build a live service game, they must create offline options. I just don't think so. Like a game like Helldivers 2, like it wouldn't even make any sense. Well, you got to let people host their own servers. Why? Why? When you bought the game, was that some kind of an agreement or an expectation that we set? No. That you'd be able to play offline? No, we didn't set that expectation, so you don't get to ask that of us. Would it be great if they did? Of course. Of course. It'd be awesome if in 10 years they said, hey, we love you guys so much and we appreciate all the support over the years. We're going to update the game with a patch, and here's what you have to do if you want to, you know, if you want to host your own server. That'd be awesome if they did that. Requiring them to do it? No. I think that would be a grave mistake. Hunt Showdown won't work on the PS4 or the Xbox One from August. Yeah, I mean, that's happened before. Certain games just are no longer supported on the old systems, you know? It happens. It happens, ladies and gentlemen. It's a thing. It's a thing. So now they changed the TOS. Yeah, I mean, some of these companies, they're going to do that, right? They can always change the terms of service, you know? They can always change the terms of service. It's the nature of we exist in a digital integrated world now. And I do think there needs to be things done to protect the consumer. I think that PlayStation and Xbox should be required to allow you to go press a button and refund a game within a certain amount of time. I think the government should require that. I think they should say, you are selling a product and the consumer should be equipped to return that product within a certain amount of time. I think that should be legislated immediately. I do. That's a consumer protection that to me makes sense. There's a logic to that. There's a reasonableness to that. I purchased this from you. It's no good, and I would like my money back. I think that that's fair. You go to the store, you buy it, you go to Amazon, you buy it, you bring it home, doesn't work well, burns the toast, doesn't vacuum the floor well, whatever, and you take it back and you get your money back. You want to enter the marketplace with the product? It better be good enough for people to want to keep it. And if they don't want to keep it, then you suffer the consequences, not the consumer. That's why I think Steam is the best, is the safest place for consumers to purchase video games. You are the most protected there. Because if you don't like it, if it's bad, if it's glitchy, if it's buggy, if it has problems, click, 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 give me my money back. It's that simple. No fuss, no muss. Transaction reversed. Is there legislation for walking out on a movie before it ends to get a refund? Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I think most movie theaters would do that. Like if you went to see a movie and like 5 to 10 minutes in, you're like, this is a disaster. And you walked out and you were like, listen, we're 10 minutes in. I would like my money back. Or could I get credit for a ticket to something else and I'll come back another day? I think some theaters would probably do that. They would let you. But a lot of theaters are going to be like, no. They would say no. Which, again, the issue that you would run into there would likely be, I mean, you just have to set a time limit. You just have to be like, listen, after so many minutes, I don't know. You'd have like a light down in the corner, not very bright, and it would switch from green to red. And once that thing switches to red, you're in. You can leave, obviously. We're not going to lock you in, but you can't get your money back. You've watched too much of the movie. First 20 to 30 minutes, if you're like, this is a pile of garbage, sure, you go get your money back. I'm trying to see if there's an existing equivalent. There is an existing equivalent. It's called Steam. There is an existing equivalent. It's called Steam. You don't like the game? You didn't play it for too long? Here's your money back. So, hey, guys, do me a real quick favor, all right? Smash that like button. Get us to 500 likes. We're going to go ahead and head to the members' writers' room in just a second. This is a great time. If you guys want to scramble and do a little 5-bomb train, get us to 50. I'll get another 5. You guys are going to fall behind on that weekly goal if we have too many low days, but that's on you. We'll still do the Friday night stream with Madam, but if you guys want to have those incentives and those fun things, like when I fought Moog, or when Madam and I play a hard game or a rage game, or like this Friday night I'll play a VR scary game and we've got the microphone figured out, you guys can hit that. Either way, we do the stream on Friday night, but that's a great way for you guys to kind of like add some spice to the Friday night fun. And then a lot of times we like to scramble at the end of the stream, because then we get to bring a bunch of people with us to the writer's room and they get to experience it. And now is a great time to do it, because you end up getting people that are more, they're here all of the time and they watch and they listen. So, actually, Mrs. Lono gave me an idea on how long do you think a live service should last. Please do Melania and prep for Elden Ring. Oh, the DLC? How many attempts did Moog take you? Oh, I didn't beat him. I got super close 2 or 3 different times, but the second phase just did me in. I just couldn't. The first phase, I got down really, really good. And the second phase, I honestly got good at reading the telegraphs, and I knew what to do and when, but I kept stepping in the stinking fire, or I would get, I would have to maneuver, and I would maneuver into the fire on the ground, and I would just, it was really, really hard to stay alive. Yeah, I had the Crimson Tear. That wasn't the issue. The issue was this second phase, area of effect, it just did me in. And I don't like those kinds of fights. They irritate me. That's why it was an incentive. People knew I wouldn't like it. And so we brought in a couple people co-op, and we beat him our second try. The first try they came in, they died before second phase, and I almost got him. And then we got him the second try. How quick is Suicide Squad about to shut down? How long would you force Suicide Squad to keep the servers on? I'd have to go back and look at verbiage about how much they promised and how much they said was developed and how much content they said was coming, and be like, hey, that all needs to come out. You need to make good on that. Or like what happened with Redfall with the Bite Back edition, they're going to give those people their money back. That's the issue. You have to go look at verbiage and consumer expectations that were set. And then if there was an expectation that we have this many months of content and people purchase the game on that promise, I think that you've got to do that. Now, they could shut down tomorrow, because nobody paid for like a DLC that they're not going to get or anything. Well, maybe they did. I don't actually know. I think with Kill the Justice League, all post content was free. So they 100% could just shut down if they wanted to. Now, I'm talking like morally, ethically, like from a principled position. If they set an expectation there was going to be X number of months of content, then I would think people buying the game on that promise should get that content. But that might be a harder case to make since you didn't pay for that content. That content was promised to you for free. But again, that was still something that could be argued procured the purchase. You know what I mean? If that procured the purchase, that, I'm going to get 20 months of free content, I don't know. You might be able to argue that, hey, I should get my money back. I bought this game because you told me you were going to support it for the, at least a minimum of 20 months. This is why regulation is needed. I don't disagree that some level of regulation would be required, that somebody could get a refund on an instance like that, where like Kill the Justice League just absolutely flops and a bunch of people bought it thinking, this is going to be a great game and it's going to last for X number of months. Yes, I think you were just going too far, Eugene, when you were like, they should be required if it's a live service game to provide offline options. I'm like, no, that's developmentally that's completely that's an overreach. I think that's a massive overreach. I think protecting the consumer within the realm of like a refund, that's more reasonable and makes more sense. Hey, you didn't deliver on the expectations you set to the consumer, so the consumer should be able to get a portion of their money back. If they've played for 2 months, you don't give them all of their money back. That would be ridiculous. That's like eating an entire meal and being like, yeah, but I didn't like it very much. Can I have my money back? A lot of the times they'll give you a portion of your bill off. If you're like, well, yeah, I ate the soup and the salad, but everything was cold. It was a hot sandwich that wasn't very hot, and the soup was like barely tepid. I ate it anyway because I'm in a bit of a hurry. Well, they'll give you some of your money back. If you play for months and then they decide, yeah, we're not going to be able to do the second year of content, we're going to shut the game down. Maybe you give those people a partial refund because they're like, well, I bought your game thinking you were going to support this for 2 years because you said you had a 2-year roadmap. How do you do partial refunds to people buying on disc? Right. Yeah. I don't know, Zuby. I don't know. All right, guys, take a second, smash the like button. I'm going to be spamming a link in the chat momentarily, and we're going to head to the writer's room, and we're going to plan the next day. It looks like there's some stuff going on in the gaming world that we'll be able to discuss. So do me a quick favor, double check that it saved your like. There's over 600 people here. I guarantee you there's about 50 of you that haven't hit like yet, and you can. Give us that 500 likes at the end of the video. It really is helpful. I'm going to be spamming a link in chat. I will also be redirecting. If you want to come with us to the writer's room, you got to be a member. $5 a month gets you into these videos that we do, these live streams. It's behind the scenes. I plan the day with my producer. I talk to y'all. You also get into our Discord. And don't forget, those Friday night streams with my wife are pretty fun, and every 25 I give 5 back. So the more often you're here, the more likely you might get a membership. And sometimes we scramble at the end of a stream to do it. That didn't happen today, so you might have to try again tomorrow if you didn't get it gifted today. And just the more you watch, the more you interact. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you got that bell button pressed. You're going to increase the odds of you getting those gifted memberships, either from me or from the community. So I'm going to spam the link. I'm going to put it in Discord first. And then I'm going to put it in the YouTube chat. All right, if you guys want to come with us, that's the link you need. I'll also do redirects. Hang on. I got to refresh the dashboard of the next stream. It's not showing properly. Okay, there it goes. Thanks so much for being a member to the channel. Now, you may be paying for your own membership. Maybe you got a gifted membership. It might have come from me. It might have come from the community. Thank you so much for supporting the channel enough, listening, lurking, whatever, to get a gifted membership. Now, if you can afford your own membership, $5 a month, you know, you can also upgrade to Member Plus right now for $1, and that kind of pulls you out of that gifted pool. That supports me directly, and it's like gifting a member, because when you pay for your own membership, you're basically making room for somebody else to get a gifted membership next time. So if you're like, oh, I can't gift members like everybody else, that's a really easy way, okay, to make room for others if you can do that. We want to see more and more people doing that. Andrew, welcome back. Thanks for renewing your membership. I'm going to end the previous stream about Hellblade 2 being a giant step backwards. And then I'm going to change that thumbnail so that it no longer shows us as live. The upload seems like